Hi there, good afternoon. This is Curtis, Question Everything. I'm here with Mr. Sami Steignmann, an incredible activist and Holocaust educator and Holocaust survivor. And I feel so honored and privileged to be able to spend this time with you. A friend introduced me to you, and we've just met, so why don't we just deep dive right away.
Go ahead. Welcome, first of all, welcome to my place, okay?
Thank you. It's a pleasure. It's an honor.
And I'll answer all of your questions.
Cool. Why don't we start from the beginning? Your early life. What did your early life start out to be? Where were you born? Where were you raised?
Okay. First of all, I'm a Holocaust survivor, child of Holocaust survivors, which means both of my parents survived. I am also a motivational speaker and Israeli, and served in the Israeli Air Force 1962-1965. I was born in a city called Chernovitz, which was part of Bukovina and part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. We were deported by the Romanians, not by the Germans. In June 22nd, 1941, when the Operation Barbarossa started, which means the Wehrmacht attacked former Soviet Union. Behind them were the killing groups called Einsatzgruppen, and behind them were the Romanian troops. And they annexed Bukovina, Bessarabia, and Transnistria. And being right now, being part of Romania, that's why we were deported by the Romanians and not by the Germans. I was in Transnistria, in a labor camp called Mogilev Podolsk. In 1944, the camp was liberated by the Red Army. It became again part of the former Soviet Union. And in 1991, when the former Soviet Union split, okay, right today it's in Ukraine. In Ukraine, unfortunately, 1.5 million Jews were murdered. Not only by the Germans, but primarily by the Ukrainians. And I am very disappointed that Zelensky, being Jewish, okay, first of all, he trivialized what's happening in the Holocaust because he said what's happening in Ukraine is a Holocaust, and that is completely untrue. The people were not deported, okay, they were not in the camps, did not face daily threats to being killed. But the other thing is, he, as a Jewish person, has not admitted the role of Ukraine in the Holocaust.
Yeah, I was in Bar Yar a few years back, yes, where, of course, we know 40,000 Jews were decimated.
Right, in
right?
1 day, yes.
In 1 day in a big pit, right.
1 or 2 days, yeah. So anyway, so in 1946, the Romanian government allowed a small group of Jews from the former Soviet Union to repatriate. My father was born in Romania proper, and he opted to go back to Romania, and he grew up in a small town in Transylvania until 1961. When after 12 years, we finally got the visa to go to Israel. Obviously...
How old were you at this point when you got to Israel?
I was 21. And in 1968, okay, I came to the United States without money, without the language. One of the reasons that I came to the States, I wanted to meet my uncle. From my father's side, from 42 people, only 2 survived. Obviously, my father and my uncle. But my uncle was never in a camp. So my uncle was not a survivor. He was a refugee in only 3 countries that officially accepted Jewish refugees. Dominican Republic, China, and Philippines. My uncle was a refugee in Shanghai.
Amazing. Now, were you one of those families that talked about the experiences in the Holocaust, or was it hush-hush in your family and it was untouchable?
Okay, in my particular case, because I was only a year and a half, obviously I have no memories of that period of time. Until the Eichmann trial in 61 in Israel, the Holocaust survivors did not talk, at least not publicly, and they wanted the children to have a normal childhood.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's a blessing in disguise because I don't have to relive those horror stories that the older generation has to go through it, had to go through it. At the same time, for 63 years, I felt I don't belong to the Holocaust survivors.
Mm.
Okay, I did not have a story. Okay, I felt I don't belong to the children of the Holocaust survivors because most of them were born in DP camps,
Mm-hmm.
displaced people. Those were the camps liberated by the Americans, Russians, British, and Australians. Uh, Life was very difficult.
Mm.
They had to be in the camps for 3 to 5 years because they had no place to go.
Mm.
However, the threat of being killed every single day, that particular threat did not exist. So, two events happened that made me finally decide to open up and to speak.
Mm-hmm. And what was that defining moment? Did you have a moment, a paradigm shift where you thought now's the time?
Okay, well, there were two events. The Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. closed its doors to the general public for 2 days for 16 years in a row. I never went. On November 1st and November 2nd of 2003, Bashir meant to be,
Mm-hmm.
I decided to go. There were over 8,000 people from all over the world. And at the table where I was sitting, I met a man born in the same city, been in the same camp, the same years. He was deported when he was 8 months old. I was deported when I was a year and a half. That's the difference between history and living history.
Mm-hmm.
By talking to him, I finally realized and I accepted that I belonged to both generations. In 2007, I joined the Holocaust Museum, the Museum of Jewish Heritage, a living memorial to the Holocaust here in Manhattan. And in 2008, I got my first assignment to speak to sixth graders.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming that you have spoken publicly. If you did, then you will realize that your first presentation is not the best, it's not the most complete. I did not have a story. And I had no idea what impact I will have on such young people.
Mm-hmm.
Again, Bashir meant to be. They sent me thank you letters, each one better than the
Wow.
other. But one sixth grader changed my life forever. She wrote, P.S. Your story was overwhelming. And I promise I'll pass your story to my children.
Wow.
When I saw the impact on my first presentation that I had, I started to do more research about my life,
Mm-hmm.
and I started to speak. So
Mhm.
that was 2008.
Wow. And in your bio, you talked about the medical experimentation. That as a child, as a baby,
Right.
you were experimented on. How did you find this out?
Well, I was in constant pain every single day, and the pain was absolutely excruciating. And the doctors did not believe me because I'm coming from a generation that was very stoic. I still represent that generation, I am. And you will not see it on my face. Like, for instance, with the backache, there are no specific tests to prove it.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to look at you to see how painful it is, and they couldn't see it. So I knew that I'm in pain, but I did not know why.
Mm-hmm.
And in 1971, when my parents visited me in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, they came from Israel. After a very short walk, they came back and they found me on the floor in excruciating pain, almost unable to move. My father never knew, actually my parents never knew that I was in pain. So in shock, inadvertently, I don't think he ever intended to tell me, he mentioned to me that I was subjected to medical experiments. He did not help me with the pain, but he gave me the courage to ask for compensation. And I don't know if you know it or not. Your audience may not know it. In 2003, 13, I was completely shocked. There were two articles, one in Daily Mail in London and one in New York Times, that the Nazis and their collaborators had 42,500 different type of camps. At the same time, right now they found out additional camps. You will never know the full extent of what really happened. Right now, the number has risen over 44,000. But not too many people know that on January 20, 1942, okay, in Wannsee, when the 15 high-ranking Nazi criminals decided the final solution to the Jewish question,
Mm-hmm.
the official date of the Holocaust, they were going to start with Europe. And once they were going to murder all of the 11 million European Jews,
Mm-hmm.
they wanted to open up a museum. And they were going to call the Museum of the Extinct Jewish Race. So this is one of the things that my mission in life right now is an acronym of the word emet,
Mm-hmm.
truth. And this is to educate the
Mm-hmm.
next generation. From my experience, in this country, there is no education, there is indoctrination.
Mm-hmm.
To motivate them to be the best they can be,
Mm-hmm.
to empower them to be upstanders, because Holocaust and genocide happened because the world stood by and did nothing. As a bystander, I teach them that they are part of the problem. As an upstander, they will be part of the solution.
Mm-hmm.
And I also teach them about tolerance. And tolerance for me, because it has different meanings depending on your background. But for me, it means to accept other people's opinion, other people's culture. I also use a different word for it, and that is respect.
Mm.
And this is self-respect, respect for other people.
For our viewers out there, what was the point of the Holocaust? I mean, it sounds like a very simple, basic question, but what was the idea of exterminating an entire race of people? What was the idea of the Third Reich?
Well, when the Nazis came to power, they did not want to kill the Jews. They wanted to have a Germany free of Jewish people, Judenfrei. As a matter of fact, when they built the first concentration camp, they even did not target the Jews. They targeted their political enemies, the communists.
Mm-hmm.
It so happened that most of the communists were Jewish people. And so they came out with the Nuremberg laws. After that came Kristallnacht. So they wanted to make it so difficult for the Jews so they would live on their own. A lot of them left. Where did they go? They went to Europe. But when the war started, unlike Europe, Poland was annexed. It became part of the Greater Germany. So in Germany, they did not want Jews. Now they found, and the Greater Germany, 3.3 million Jews. What the hell do you do with them? And that came the idea of exterminating.
You know, one of my biggest struggles that I struggle with is, how is it that you had ordinary German citizens that got to the point of apathy, where that they were so apathetic? Because it couldn't have been that, they didn't see their Jewish neighbors being whisked away into cattle cars and off into camps. How was it that we got to a place of apathy?
That's exactly, I'm the only Holocaust survivor that instead of emphasizing my story, as compelling as it may be, it is a personal story. And I go and I emphasize the history, how it happened, step by step by step by step. People did not react until it came to a point of no return. One of the things that people do not understand is that Germans are law-abiding citizens. So when they came out with the Nuremberg laws in 1935, and they told the German people, do not associate yourself with your former friends, with the Jewish people. They felt patriotic not to do that. The Nazis were not very good, in my opinion, were geniuses when it came to propaganda. Now, they also felt, and they tried to convince the world that the Jews are a danger not only to Germany, because we are a small number, but to the world. So they did it by liking the Jews as rats. Why rats? Rats, just like the Jews, live all over the world, but they are small in number. But they spread disease. So by portraying the Jews as rats, they convinced the world that we are not a danger to Germany,
Right.
but also to the world.
Right. I know you've quoted Joseph Goebbels. His name should be erased, right? That if you tell a lie long enough, it becomes truth, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Right. And during the Treaty of Versailles, one of the punishments was that they had to pay reparations to all the countries they fought against. That caused inflation. In 1917, $1 was worth 4 German money. How much was $1 worth in 1923 at the height of the inflation? I'm asking you.
How much was $1 worth in 1923? Oh, I don't know.
1 trillion.
1 trillion.
You could have a wheelbarrow full of paper money, and you could not buy even a newspaper.
Wow.
Nobody wanted it. They used it to warm themselves up in the winter.
Yeah.
So that's why I say do not make any comparisons to the past. Things were different, attitudes were different. Okay, we did not have the social media
Right.
today, that which is a very powerful tool for good.
Would you argue, though, Sami, though, that there is propaganda still happening in 2022, almost 2023? Do we still live?
Oh, it's worse than before.
Worse than before. How so?
Because young people will not do the research. We have people in power. We have celebrities that use the wrong words. And I'll give you an example. Since I'm an Israeli, I'll give you one example, but I can give you examples here in the United States. Our former Prime Minister, Bennett, used the word West Bank. Totally inappropriate. Like Greeks are coming from Greece, Italians are coming from Italy, Jews are coming from Judea. We have to use the word Judea and Samaria. If you don't like Judea and Samaria, call it, okay, disputed territories. But don't call, okay, and use the word of our enemies. And take a look subliminally the difference between Judea and Samaria and West Bank. When you use the word West Bank, instinctively, okay, you're thinking about occupation. And that's confrontational. Nothing can be solved. When you say Judea and Samaria, that means we have returned to our homeland. And the word occupation does not apply. You cannot apply your own land. Iraqis cannot occupy Iraq.
Right.
Iranians cannot occupy Iran. Okay? Jordanians cannot occupy Jordan.
Right.
Okay? So subliminally. So my generation, I don't know about your generation, but my generation, okay, will not make the changes. So that's why my mission is to teach the young people, for them to unite, to march nationwide without violence, to take example from Martin Luther King, and to use the proper words, so to change the false narrative, okay, to the proper narrative. There is I'll give an example. I'm not going to use the name. You probably will know. Your audience will know. Somebody said that the Holocaust is not about race. Okay. The danger in it, okay, because this is a person that has millions of followers all over the world. The young people will not do the research and will accept what that person said.
Scary.
Okay, and they will repeat it.
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes the truth.
Right.
Okay, so that's why when I educated young people, my goal is not to educate just the Jewish kids, okay, but even the non-Jewish kids, because the Holocaust is not a Jewish issue. 11 million people were murdered. 6 million were Jews, but 5 million were non-Jewish people. So it's for both of us. To give another example, a leader of our government, said that there are concentration camps in the south. It's a complete lie. Okay, life, okay, in the camps is not easy. Life is not easy, but they were not deported, and the threat of the daily death does not exist. So call it whatever you want. Call it detention camps, but don't call it concentration camp. By calling it concentration camp, you're trivializing what happened during those days. For instance, somebody else, another leader of our country, okay, both of them are obviously anti-Semites, but the other leader said that Holocaust is happening in the world, and it's a lie. Okay, genocide, yes, it's happening. Genocide is made of two words: geno, which means group, side, murder. It's the murder of a group of people.
Right.
But Holocaust is the annihilation of a group of. There is no ethnic group today, unless somebody can prove me wrong. Okay, it's slated to be completely annihilated from the face of the earth.
Right.
So that's why it's very important to use the proper words. Otherwise, the false narrative will be perpetuated.
Right. Would you argue, though, Sami, that there is, I mean, for instance, there's a bill, thankfully, thank God, it's been scrapped from the New York government website, but there was a bill that was drafted in 2015 called A416. What's this bill? It was a bill that was drafted by Nick Perry, a politician out in Brooklyn, and it was a response to the Ebola, if you recall, the Ebola virus. And basically, it gives government the authority to remove you out of your home and put you into some type of a containment camp. You would need an attorney to get out. Thankfully, it's been scrapped. You can actually go online and you can still look it up, and I highly suggest anyone to do their research. I myself was very much involved in activism and was fighting tooth and nail for this bill to be off of people's radar. Unfortunately, we have a governor right now, Governor Kathy Hochul, who is trying to reinstate this bill and trying to get it off the ground again. So that's what I'm seeing. I mean, could you see certain parallels to what could potentially happen, God forbid?
Well, like I said before, I say do not make comparisons to the past. We have to learn from the past. But there are signs that if we don't react on time and appropriately, okay, it could escalate and lead to other tragedies. And that is the job of the young people.
Right.
To make the difference.
Right. Let's switch gears a little bit. I know that you...
I'll give you an example.
Yeah, please.
Okay. There is a virus that is much more dangerous than COVID-19. Forget about the indoctrination, propaganda, making everybody comply.
Right.
But, okay, it was dangerous, okay, a lot of people died, but that's not the point. The point is there is a much more dangerous virus, and it's the virus of bullying, bigotry, anti-Semitism, hatred, racism, and ideology.
And Sami, unfortunately, it looks like it's
be eradicated.
And it's made a comeback. Have you noticed? I'm sure you have.
It's always been there. It cannot be eradicated.
Right.
The only way you can combat it is only through education. Okay? It will always be there. It will always be there. It cannot be eradicated.
Why do you think these voices right now are louder? You talked about these influencers and these celebrities, and now we're seeing a real attack on the Jewish people right now. What's your take on that? What's your interpretation? Why are we seeing an uptick in anti-Semitism in almost 2023?
Because our leaders, the Jewish people, do not like to be in your face.
Mm-hmm.
They try to do it through legislation. That is not going to make change. You cannot legislate how somebody feels. A simple example. There was at one time here that they wanted to have two uh, resolutions, one against anti-Semitism and one against hate. And people make the mistake, they lump together things that are not the same. Holocaust to genocide, okay? Anti-Semitism and hatred. Anti-Semitism refers only to one group, the Jewish people. You can hate people for the color of their eyes, the countries they came from, the language, the color of the skin, many, many reasons. But anti-Semitism is 4,000 years old. And what they do, the Jewish people, the leaders, did not stand up appropriately, and they lumped together the two of them, and it's not fighting anti-Semitism, it's not fighting hate.
Mm-hmm.
It's washed. Okay? It's nothing. And this is part of the problem that our leaders are not taking the stand against the anti-Semites. So let me ask you a question. Okay, obviously you have done a lot of research. Have you heard of a national rally called No Fear?
I haven't.
Congratulations. You're among the many.
Mm-hmm.
So here it is, all the Jewish organizations co-sponsored it. National rally, Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
There were only 3,000 people.
Mm.
They had wonderful speakers. They had a senator. They had a congressman. Not a single Jewish leader was there. The media was not there. Nobody knows about it. And I am saying what the Jewish people, especially the young people, they have to emulate and follow the BLM movement.
Mm.
Pay attention. I separate the movement with the organization.
Okay.
The organization is very anti-Semitic. But the movement, take a look what they did. They marched. They brought the media. Okay? They were in your face. And right now, BLM is known worldwide.
Right. They're also, I mean, per the Daily Wire and Candace Owens, and from my own research, it's, with all due respect, it's a scam, BLM. I mean, it's not really, it's not a real organization.
And my issue with the Jewish people is we are helping every other ethnic group. What are we going to stand up for ourselves?
Right.
And how many other ethnic groups that we helped
Right.
will join us
Right.
on the rally?
Right.
But I'm an optimist. And the pendulum, okay, has always went from one extreme to another. Eventually, it's out in the middle. We are right now at one extreme of the pendulum. But being an optimist, I am convinced that the pendulum will swing back towards the middle.
I think it's
it
about...
will take time, but you know.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I think it's about owning our strengths and our weaknesses. I just had this conversation before I got here. There's a gentleman, Beryl Solomon, and he was talking about why Jewish people, and everyone says we're great in business. Okay, so if we're great in business, let's explore that idea and let's flesh it out. And it was such a Kiddush Hashem. It was such a sanctifying God's name, and the way he explained it.
Jews are so good in business?
Why is that?
You tell me.
Well, there's a few reasons. I mean, one is tzedakah, charity. We believe in giving charity. Okay. The Talmud says that we have to teach our sons and our daughters a trade. We have to teach them actually, it says we have to teach them how to swim. And there's a lot of precedents for it. You're nodding your head. Tell me.
Because people were not allowed to go to university.
Mm.
They could not have a profession. So they had the peddlers that were called alte schmatters.
Right.
Alte Sachen.
Old rags.
Right.
Right.
And they made something out of it.
Yeah.
And to be able to do that, you have to have a certain personality and everything else. And that's because they were not allowed to have a profession.
Right.
So that was something that transmitted. one of the most famous Yiddish songs. Do you know Rosenkiss mit Mantels?
No. Sing a bar for me.
I'll
No?
play it to you on TV, on YouTube.
I want to hear you. I want to hear you sing
I
it.
can sing.
You can sing, okay.
Okay, it's a lullaby.
Okay.
The mother's wish is that the young boy will grow up and will have a cart
Mm-hmm.
to sell raisins and almonds.
Mm-hmm.
That was the epitome of success.
Of success. Wow.
People don't know that.
Right. Well, we know the art of the hustle. We know how to hustle.
But because, okay, we were always under the jurisdictions and the benevolence of other powers,
Mm-hmm.
leaders, and everything else. So we are very laid back, and nothing will change unless the young people will unite. They will march nationwide.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and nothing will be accomplished.
Right. Or perhaps...
Little small steps, but not in a significant,
Mm-hmm.
okay, to change the dynamics.
What's your thoughts on the media? Do you trust the media? Do you trust what you're seeing in this day and age? Is there propaganda in our current media?
Personally,
Mm-hmm.
I don't watch TV.
Mm-hmm.
The news. I'm watching TV, but not the news.
Mm-hmm.
It's talking heads.
Yeah.
Okay, so both of them are saying whatever they want to say. Nobody has a monopoly on the truth, but nothing is being accomplished. Okay, take a look what's happening in Israel. They are dedicated to a group of people. They are very loyal, and nothing is changing. You have to change the dynamics how people think.
Mm.
And Israel is very poor in the PR.
Communications. Yeah.
They've always been very bad. I'll give you an example. For me, it's coming natural. But I think that it's imperative that they teach in schools and universities how to have a dialogue. And I was at UC Berkeley,
Mm-hmm.
ultra-liberal
Mm-hmm.
campus. You heard recently what happened there. You don't have to go into it. But I found out there was a Lebanese Christian student that had not negative feelings about Israel, extreme.
Mm.
And had a very large Christian, obviously, and also Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering if he would be willing to talk to me. To my surprise, he said yes.
Mm-hmm.
So as I asked him, why do you feel the way you do about the state of Israel? I made sure that even facially, I did not give him the opportunity to misinterpret that I'm confrontational.
Mm-hmm.
The way you treat somebody, that's the way they will treat you.
Mm-hmm.
We listen to each other. We heard everyone what has to say. And 45 minutes later, we shook hands. And I said, look, what you're doing is you're lumping together two things. If you're against the Israeli government's policy, you have my blessing.
Mm-hmm.
But the state of Israel has done nothing to you.
Mm.
Can you separate the two issues?
Mm-hmm.
And because we had a dialogue, he said yes.
Mm-hmm.
And young people do not know
Yeah.
how to do it. Because when you go, for instance, somebody would tell me, an Israeli Holocaust survivor, Israel is an apartheid state. Most of the people would go in the attack mode
Mm-hmm.
or in the defensive. Oh, this is not true, whatever it is. I would take a different approach. And I would look that person, okay, would look him in the eye and say, you know something? I agree with you. Can you imagine the shock
Mm.
from somebody like me saying I agree with you? And I say, but you know something? You brought it up. Obviously, you know a lot about it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Google it.
Mm-hmm.
And you will see that, okay, it's a whole page. Unless That's what you want to believe. You have a closed mind. There is no way that Israel
Right.
is an apartheid state. But here is the interesting part.
Mm.
I would ask him, you brought it up. What is apartheid?
Mm-hmm.
Where did you learn? Where did you read about it? Who told you about it? That gives you the time, okay, to take a step back without being in the attack mode or the defensive mode. And after you hear his or her answers, you have to make two decisions. If that person has a closed mind, very civilly, politely, he will say, let's agree that we disagree and end the conversation. But if you are knowledgeable, you have to be knowledgeable. You cannot just, because you're in Israel and you feel like it and you can tell them that, okay, you have to be knowledgeable what apartheid is. But if you are knowledgeable, you can have a discussion and keep in mind that you will not change that person. Nobody can change anybody. You can change their perspective. They have to do the research and to make the arrangements.
How do you feel about this current crop of cancel culture? That's
what?
Cancel culture to eliminate someone based on their views. If they don't agree with you, we now live in a world now where we can block them through social media, through our phones, and we say goodbye without even...
The only thing that I can say, people that are ignorant, they want to believe what they want to believe, or because somebody in power or authority, celebrity has said something, they will follow it. But they really don't have the answers. They make the wrong comparisons. And I'm saying, please do not compare anything to what happened in the past. Learn from it, okay, and learn how to prevent future tragedies.
Okay. And for our viewers out there, why is the state of Israel so critical?
Number one is because Israel is very poor in PR. They're not doing a very good job. People always feel for the, what do you call it, underprivileged. They feel that the Palestinians, okay, are slighted. But take a look, what very few people know. When we talk about Palestinians, which Palestinians are you talking about? There are three groups. Number one, you have the Israeli Palestinians. You have the ones that live in Judea and Samaria under the PA authority. And you have the ones that live in Gaza under Hamas. They don't have a common goal. Their only common goal is to destroy Israel. They do not want Israel to be there. And they are exceptionally good in the PR. They tell lies. The Jews and the Israelis do not respond appropriately and in time. And by the time, they respond, they react. They are not proactive. They react. By that time, it's too late. Take a look at an example, BDS. A very small group. They started. Nobody paid attention. They started to go to universities. Our response was very, very weak. They became strong. Now they indoctrinated the college campuses. What did they do? They went to high school. They succeeded in high school. Now they're going to middle school. We are not reacting properly, adequately. That's the problem.
Wow. You know, while I was doing my research on you, I learned some interesting things. And one of the facts I learned about you is that you even had a period where you were actually homeless. And I'm sure it was, this is obviously not a great time in your life, but yet you're able to, you're beyond that, you're past that, and you have looked on the other side and you've been through so much. My question to you, Sami, is how do you keep your optimism? I mean, you emanate warmth, you emanate happiness, and you easily could not go in that direction. How do you keep the attitude up? How do you get through these trials and tribulations? How do you get through real trauma? Because we're going through that phase right now where people are really struggling and they really need solutions.
That's why I'm a motivational speaker. But let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Have you ever had the worst day in your life?
I've had a few worst days in my life.
Just one.
Yep.
Did anything good happen on that day?
Did anything good happen?
Did anybody smile at you?
I'm
Did
sure.
anybody said a nice word to you?
I'm sure.
Okay, when you go to bed, instead of dwelling on the bad day, how bad it was, think of that good thing that happened on that day. Go to sleep. In the morning, you wake up with a fresh attitude. It's a new beginning. Okay, it's a new day. Okay, move forward. Okay. So I tell young people, okay, the past is gone. There is nothing you can do about it. Okay, accept it, learn from it, take responsibility. Okay, because nothing happens. It's always action, reaction. Nothing happens on the vacuum. And move forward. Okay? Can you pick up that plaque over there, the last one on the left? Okay. There are two things that I'm very unhappy what's happening in this country. People have forgotten how to disagree in a civil way. Number two, watch the news. Okay? I'll put it like this.
Yep.
Watch the news. And the interesting part is nobody is accountable or responsible for anything. It's always somebody else's fault or circumstances.
Right.
I became homeless because I trusted people. But these were my friends that I trusted with my life. Take a look what I said here. We are all prisoners of our own mind. It's like a computer. What you put here, okay, you put negative thoughts, it's okay. You put positive thoughts, it's okay.
Okay.
So we are all prisoners of our own mind, what we put in the mind, okay. Take a look what I did, okay.
I accepted the past. I let go of the past. I took responsibility for my actions and mistakes. I decided to forgive myself. I decided to be kind to myself. I stopped blaming others or circumstances for my predicaments. I have choice to react to any given situation in a positive manner. I am in control.
Okay. Here is the interesting part of it is, how did I take responsibility? It's so easy to blame somebody else.
Certainly.
To be vengeful, to be angry.
Sure.
And I said, you know something? I made two mistakes. Those were people I trusted. I gave them cash. I didn't put anything in writing.
Okay.
Prove it. So by taking responsibility, and I said, you know something? They are not guilty. They took advantage of my stupidity. So now, that's when I had to forgive myself. To let go of the past. Okay? To be kind to myself. Because we are kind to other people.
Yeah.
We forget to be kind to ourselves. We constantly, say, why did I do this? Why did I? You did it. It's over. There's nothing you can do about it. Learn from it.
Sammy, how does God play into this whole picture of your emotional health and coming out the other side and going through what you've gone through?
It's my positive outlook on life. I always had it. We all struggle. We learn through our obstacles. Right now, the young people are going through a period of time that I am not for it, but everything is given to them in a silver platter.
Yes.
So when they will face certain obstacles, they will not know how to react. And in the past, our parents let us struggle with the obstacles that we had to overcome.
Yeah.
They gave us the guidance, and we became stronger and wiser.
Right. Wow. Well, you've given me so many gems to think about. I can't wait to review the video.
Right.
But you're such an inspiration to so many. Thank you for letting me come into your home. I mean, this has been a tremendous opportunity. And this is Curtis, and don't forget to question everything.
Okay.
Thanks for your time.
My pleasure.